America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone. We're excited as the commissioners to give you this program and what we have laid out, and what we think is a great idea and a great way for us to move forward with the EMS services here in the county. Before I start with that though, let me just tell everyone the meeting is being live streamed. So there's people in the public that are on it. It's open to the public, but it's also live streamed. We have on Zoom right now, we have Chris Ramsey from Lisa Baker's office, Representative Rosemary Brown, Jill Gamboni from Representative Piper's office, and Mike Brzezinski from Pike County Planning. And before we start, so if we could just start over here and go around the room and see who we have, we would appreciate that.
John Henderson, Delaware Township.
Rick Kohler, Delaware Township.
George Fleur, Shaula Township.
Keith Razor, Shaula Township.
Shannon's with Shannon.
Hi, I'm Shannon Devos. I'm the
Nick Bassett, Blooming Grove.
Sammy Gillette, Blooming Grove.
Ryan Spodak, Blooming Grove.
Jeremy Van Dyne, the Pike County Dispatch.
Don Duran, Suburban EMS.
Mike Fisher, Westfall EMS.
Rich Rama, Westfall Township.
Paul Sheldon, West Paul Township.
Cheryl Schmidt, Porter Township.
Jeff Shook, Black Waxen Township.
Kathy Wargo, Mike Waxon Township. Rebecca Kuiper, Greer Township.
David Pete, Dreer Township.
Mark O'Brien, Demon Fire.
Al Valente, Famous Fire.
Mike Loftus, Fire.
Tim Rowland, Commonwealth Health, EMS. Greg Quinio, Milford Borough.
Keith Gunuskey, Wallenpaupack School District.
Rachel Hendricks, Smoker Township.
Eric Earhart, Elmira Township.
Hunt, Elmira. Marion Keegan, Michael Waxman.
And that, like Amherst Management.
Aaron Springs, Lincoln Township. Rob Roner, Lehman.
Jay Neufeld, Delaware.
Bernie Swarwood, Pike County Department of Public Safety. Ed Nichols, Digman Township.
Comments or Demon Township. That was supposed to announce.
So great. So I think we have representation from every municipality in the county, and that's what we wanted to have here, so that we can lay out for you our plan. So you know, this is our plan, but this is really to help you as municipal leaders work through this very difficult crisis that we see has been happening for a number of years, and that's what EMS services, to provide services that are 24-hour services is our dream throughout the entire county. Many of you have done fabulous jobs. The volunteers have done fabulous jobs. We're not here to say anything bad that's going on. Everything is good, but as you know, in the last couple of years, we have identified many different weaknesses within our county. And we just don't think that we as county leaders should sit back and just leave this upon your shoulders to work with. Even though it is laid out that it's townships who are responsible in boroughs for emergency services, the county here also has a responsibility for public safety. That's one of our roles as elected officials, is to make sure that the public stays safe. And what other way to make sure that they stay safe if we don't have adequate ambulance services? So this started a number of years ago in 2018, when it was identified with some ALS services pulling out of the county, and it identified some weaknesses. It also showed the strengths, but those strengths were being affected by the weakening areas in the other areas of the county. So we put a study together, which many of you have seen, and that started the discussion that we're here today. You know, it was picked up last couple of months by Blooming Grove by holding their meetings, which we attended, and we commend them for starting those discussions with everybody involved. When we did that, the county commissioners also took this to CCAP, the County Commissioners Association. It turns out that this issue is not just Pike County. This issue spreads out across the Commonwealth, whether it's a rural county or an urban county, whether it's Chester County down by Philadelphia, or it's Tioga County up in the northern part of the state. And Pike County and Butler County, all of them are facing these same issues. And we just felt that what we need to do here is we need to put together the initiative to move this forward and to help you. And the one way to help it, we believe, is through funding. And you as township officials, you'll hear in a little while how we plan on doing that. And you will have the money. It'll be at your discretion of how it is spent. We will give you some guidelines of what we expect, but otherwise, for the most part, it's for whatever you put in, we will match. The other things that we developed was the Pike Initiative Fund. But before I get to that, I guess you all know that there's some legislation pending out there that CCAP and PSATs and everybody has been involved with, but that's going to take some time. Chris Ramsey from Lisa Baker's office is on Zoom. They are moving forward with that to create maybe a different form of a funding stream than just what we see today with you townships using either a EMS tax or just something out of your general fund, or in the case of the county, us using our general fund. If we could develop some type of policy through legislation, it could become a user fee that everybody would pay equal amounts throughout the county. But that's going to take time in Harrisburg to occur. We don't feel in the commissioner's office that we should allow this to just linger. We need to take action now. And by doing this, we're going to allow you to have a little bit more money to do what's best for your residents in your township. But by doing good for your residents allows everybody in this county to feel safe. This service is a county-wide service. This is not anything to do with borders. Ambulances have to be able to travel from here to there, because if there's a major incidences, there needs to be mutual aid. There needs to be, everybody needs to work together. And the county dollars can help, I believe, do that. The other thing that we've done, you've seen, is the Pike County Initiative Fund. Timmy's going to speak a little bit about this in a little while. This is a fund that we developed through a local law firm, Jason Oliver, and a local resident, Shahola, William Lovejoy, who donated upwards of $38,000 to begin a program that pays for people's training here in this facility, which has been designated as a training facility with the state. So by doing that, we have saved local services, I think, Timmy, $10,000 to $16,000 in fees. And this is a fund that we're going to continue to promote, and we're going to continue to provide the training here for people able to take and become EMTs and move into a profession. And that's what we believe we can do here, and also allow them to work within the county. So other things I had on here, I think that was it. I think we want to get into what we want to discuss with the PowerPoint. You all have a copy. The one thing I would ask is that if you would just wait until the end to ask all the questions, write your questions down. We'll answer as all of them that we can. If we can't answer them, we'll take them back and we'll get answers for you. But we think we have a well laid out plan. The one thing I want to make sure you understand, and we will say this a number of times, this is not a one and done deal. This is a deal where the county is going to commit these dollars in our budget for years to come. We are working on ways to do that. It's going to happen, and we're going to make sure that it continues. So it's not like it's going to be next year, we're going to tell you, you know, it's all dried up. It's not. It's going to be here. So it's a fix until some other formula comes down the road with some type of legislation and something else is formed. So the next in line here was to have Timmy just talk to you a little bit about EMT classes, and then we have somebody coming, Keith Gunuskey, coming from Wallenpaupack, to speak a little bit about what's going on in Wallenpaupack, because I think it's important that you know that these type of programs are being put in place to bolster EMS services here in Pike County. And we are on the cutting edge of this. I've already heard from people in the state, this isn't being done in any other place where the county has stepped up to help the municipalities. And we think it's important that we do this together because it needs to be a team effort. So Tim, you want to speak a little bit about that, and then we'll move on to the next, then we'll move into the presentation.
Sure. Good evening. I just want to talk for a few minutes about the initiative, the Pike County Emergency Services Initiative, and how it's allowed us to expand our training. 2 years ago, we had to source out all of our EMT stuff. We had to bring in an agency to do it for us. That's not the case anymore. We went out and explored getting our own ETA, and we have that ETA. With the help of the Pike County Emergency Initiative, we've been able to go out and have classes run off a scholarship where it's no cost to the student. I got actually just I put them on the line. Actually, they didn't even know they were coming up tonight. But if you two can come in, we have a class kicking off here tonight at the academy. We just finished one on the 17th of the month. I got a few numbers here. We're at 100% testing on that one. Okay, right at 100%. 21 of them took the national test. That's why we're at 100%. It's for those of you that don't know a lot about the EMS field and the national certification test, it's hard. It's nothing to take lightly. It is a very hard, test to take. We encourage, I went down and I spoke to these people tonight, and they're excited about taking the class. And I said, there's a lot of responsibility taking the class. you're under a scholarship where the initiative fund is paying for your scholarship, so you need to take it seriously. So we got a set of rules in place to help them. The first class we did, we had 21 students. 8 of them are working right now in the EMS field, which don't sound great, but we had 3 people drop out because of medical issues. They'll be jumping in and taking more tests. And we had everybody at least took the National Registry once. That might not sound important to you, but that's huge to me because we've had people take a 200-hour class and not take the National Registry test. So basically you just wasted your time. So moving forward, we just finished up the class the other day on the 17th. We had 20 students test and we'll be following along. We check on them every couple of so often, every month or so, to make sure they're doing the right thing and taking the test and the requirements for that. We hold them to a higher standard, but we figure we need to hold them to a higher standard because people are willing to donate money to put them through this program, and we need to see them through this program. So the sky's the limit when it comes to training. And if we have to sit with them and do extra training, we don't care. We're going to do whatever it takes to get them through the program. Why did you take the MP class?
I took the ET class because I was talking to a career firefighter and he said that it's one of the requirements. So.
I was an EMT prior and this moved to my farms 2 years ago. I want to be able to help the community. So I want to take the class again and be able to help out.
That's great. I'm not going to tie up. It's the last minute thing. I say that's all I have. If anybody have any questions about training, there's some exciting stuff. We did an EMR class down in Dingman's. We're talking, they're going to do an AMT. So there's some exciting stuff coming up and we're here to help. So we're here to help you. Don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Don't go crazy. You guys gotta go back to class.
Keith, you want to give us a little update on Wallenpaupack? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Keith is the superintendent of.
Wallenpaupack, as of September 1st, so there's still time to run, yet, so it's still coming. It's over, yes. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Just my background a little bit is also in emergency services. Being a school administrator is obviously my love and passion, but my second full-time job is running fire calls 31 years at the Homestead Fire Department, which I'm president of. And one of the things that there's 2 big hurdles I think we all face. I don't have to tell you that. One is funding, number one, which you're here to talk about. But the second part is bodies, right? We need people who are trained because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have highly skilled, trained individuals, it doesn't matter. Things aren't going to get done. So at Wallenpaupack, we've really tried to take a step forward in helping our community. As part of our student goals of all of our students is to be responsible citizens. And what does that mean? We believe that we can be a part and our students can be a part of the community by receiving some training. Wallenpaupack has 8 career and tech ed programs. If you don't know this, Wayne County, Pike County are 2 of only 3 counties in the entire state that do not have their own career and tech center. We've tried many, many times. My predecessor, Dr. Hudak, has tried many, many times, and it just hasn't happened. So what we are is a comprehensive high school, meaning that the students come, they get their core academic subjects, but then they also take any type of career classes that they would need, automotive, things of that nature. So Protective Services has been approved by the state as our 8th career tech program. And what that's going to look like is our students coming in 10th grade will actually take a law enforcement year in law enforcement. In 11th grade, it will be EMS, where they will be certified EMT at the basic level. And in 12th grade, they will receive their Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. At this point, we're looking at students who will be able to graduate with over 60 certifications from national, from NIN certifications, the ICF, everything across the board. And so we're really looking at trying to get as many students into that program as possible. We ran an intro class this year. We had a cap at 60, we had 58 kids attend that class. So it is exciting. We're moving in a great direction, I believe. Next year, we're going to start again that law enforcement is kind of a track as we move through this. TJ Lofberg, maybe some of you know TJ, we've hired him. He's going to be our instructor throughout. We're looking at adding an additional instructor each year. So TJ will start next year with our 10th graders. He will do a law enforcement year. He will then move with that cohort in 11th grade as EMS, and then 12th grade as fire. And we hope to hire 2 additional staff members to backfill behind him. So we're looking for law enforcement, EMS, and then that fire perspective. Where everyone can help us is getting the word out and letting us know. As I mentioned, the CTC between Wayne and Pike County, because we can't really form, or we haven't been able to generate one career and tech center, we're sharing students. So for example, next year, Wayne Highlands is sending 2 students to us to actually partake in that program. I've been in discussion with John Bell, Brian Blom down at Delaware Valley. Delaware Valley is going to advocate for this program to try to send students our way. Western Wayne, same thing. And we want to reciprocate that. There's some programs that they have that we don't have. So we want to be able to share students. That's really the next best thing to a career and tech center. So we're really excited about this program. Word of mouth is important, trying to get as many kids involved in this, but we really think that we're heading in the right direction. And again, it's that staffing and it's the funding. So we talk about funding. We hope in a couple of years to be able to push out some staffing. We have a number of students. I will just say this is my last point, is that we have kids who are in the program who in the future are looking at becoming, for example, the one individual I spoke with wants to be a lawyer. And I said, well, why are you taking this program? Well, unfortunately, his family, they're running into some financial difficulty. And one of the things that we have found is that when students graduate with their EMT and then their firefighter 1 and 2, we will actually have colleges and universities coming to our school and offering scholarships. You know, they can live in the firehouse for free. So this isn't an end for this student. This is a means for an end for this student. But regardless, when they leave, they will always have that background of the fire, EMS, and law enforcement. So we're really happy. And if there's any questions, I'd be more happy to answer those. Thank you so much.
We'll get going here with Ron first, but I'll just take, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing these partnerships going on between private sector with the initiative fund and the school district doing their part, and then the county here helping you with your part. And then, of course, we have the service providers that we need to bolster and continue to support them however we can. So I'll let Ron start then on the first slide, and we'll get moving, maybe.
Goals. We tried to come up with some rather simple but far-reaching and broad goals. But the first is to create a sustainable system that provides countywide 24/7 coverage and improved emergency medical services. Develop a program that can serve as a model for other counties as the legislative process continues to seek new funding streams. We recognize that this is a bridge to the future. Where that bridge is going, I don't think any of us know, and how quickly we can get there, I don't think we know. And then to assist the Pike County municipalities in funding countywide 24/7 emergency medical services. I think it's all yours.
So we tried to put together, I guess, what I'll call the 30,000-foot view of what we're trying to accomplish here. And the first one is maybe the most important. That's why it's up at the top. This is about the funding. So what we're saying is that we will match up to 2 mils of the municipality's funding for EMS services. So obviously, that's for each municipality to determine how much you want to commit to this. But whatever that number is, up to 2 mils, we will match. We will fund the plan beginning January 1st of 2022. So we're looking to do this quickly. And as Matt said, it may be that the operative word there is beginning. This is meant to be sustainable. It's not going to be a one-off. We will ask each municipality to let us know by October 1st of whatever year we're in, what their projected allocation is for the upcoming year, so that we know that and know what our funding stream has to be. At this point, we thought that the best way to do it would be to distribute funds to municipalities on a quarterly basis. And I think this is an important one. The objective here is to fund BLS and ALS, and not, the idea being is to provide quality care to people. And it would not be our intention to be involved in funding QRS. Now, obviously, if a municipality wants to do that on top of whatever else they're doing, that's up to you. That's you run the show. But in terms of our funding, we're looking for ALS and BLS. The next one is obviously we cannot do this without cooperation from all of you folks here, from municipalities, obviously, from the EMS agencies. We want this to be a cooperative effort. We understand that you are in charge of this, and our job is to provide you money and some guidance if you seek it. The next one I think could be important, and it says potentially provide administrative support to assist with processing insurance claims. I'm not a part of your world, but I have, because of practicing law for 40 years, dealt with way too many insurance companies. I know that this can be a really sort of monstrous undertaking just in terms of the paperwork. And if there's something that we can do to assist that in some way, there's some opportunity out there that can help you. We're willing to do that. I don't know exactly what form that takes yet, but we're willing to consider that. We will collect that data each year and adjust the plan to meet percentage of service for each provider. So you're going to hear in a little bit that our initial proposal is to look at this funding stream based upon the maps that already exist and the geography that already exists of what companies go where. We understand that over time, as we're getting information in, we're seeing an uptick in calls for one company or a number of companies. That doesn't make that just geographical breakdown equitable. We want to collect that data and make sure that we are being equitable going forward. And the last one Matt's touched on, to fund this plan until legislation allows for something different. Now, that may be a year from now, it may be 5 years from now, and it may be that even if that comes to pass, the legislation that's out there is going to be optional for counties. That's the only way it's ever going to pass. So it's conceivable that this would pass, but that based upon a system we already have in place, we wouldn't have to do it. But if there are opportunities under state legislation, then this gives us a bridge to get there so that we can do it beginning next year and not 5 years from now, or however, I was going to say quickly, wrong word, however slowly the wheels turn in Harrisburg. Okay, so that's just an overview of what we're proposing.
Okay, then I'll move on to the proposal of the overview, which you'll see there, which is it's going to be used to fund the primary municipal EMS providers as shown as a 911 call list. If a municipality has more than one primary provider, then the funds will be adjusted by percentage of the coverage area. So you see that map there. That map is nothing new. That map, according to Bernie and the 911, has been around for years. We only see this as the way so that we can get moving on this, that we would find out what those percentages are, and we know what the percentages are. In some cases, such as the Milford Borough, Milford Township, they're 100% covered by the Milford ambulance. Some of the other townships like Shahola have a different percentage there between Lackawaxen and Milford. We're just suggesting this because this is all we have to go by. We would ask that this money is going to be used for expanding services, not so much for infrastructure. You could do that. We want to see this money being used as county dollars to be used for paid staff, expanding staff. Somebody brought up the whole thing of increasing wages. Yeah, we're supportive of that also, because if we can't find people to work in these services, then they're really no good. But if we have to up the wages, then our money can be used to do that, so that we can make sure that we have trained people in these positions. So if you look at that map, I think we handed out also what the percentages are. You'll see them. We've done some of the math with that, of how that would look. That can change over time. Some thought was given into about counting calls. I mean, Bernie says that gets a little difficult to do. It's easier, I think, for us to just start here. We have 13 services that service Pike County. Some of them are in county, some of them are out of county, some of them are even out of state. But we would give that information to you and show you where you can fund it. Again, you are the municipal leaders. If you decide, and Bernie can speak to this maybe later if there's questions, if you decided you wanted to change your primary, you can do that. But right now, this is what we have to go by, and this is how we're going to show you how we think the money that we're giving you should be allocated. Here, the next page here is again the proposal fund, their portion from the general fund. It doesn't matter to us where you're getting the matching dollars. We're not telling you that you have to put in a referendum. We're not telling you where you can get it. We're telling you can get it from EMS tax, grants, the general fund, whatever combination it is that you feel is work for your township. That's what we're asking you to do. Some townships, like Lackawaxen, Milford Borough just recently, Milford Township passed EMS taxes with 95% support to add 2 mills onto the taxes. So it's doable, but it's also a process. And we're not looking to hold this process up by telling you you've got to go in November and get this on the ballot. If you so choose to do that in the future, that's your prerogative to do. We're not here to make you do that. We're asking you to work with the existing providers that you have or contract with new providers. Again, this is your job to do this and figure out who it is that's covering your region. And we're hoping, we want to expand coverages. We want to fill any voids that are going on. We know that there's some areas that already have paid services. We know there's some that have 12-hour paid services. Some of them have 24. Well, our vision is that if we give enough money here, we can end up with 24-hour paid service throughout the county. And that benefits every single resident in this county. Because as I've said many times, we're all sitting right now in Blooming Grove with the expectation that if something happened here and we needed a medical emergency, that we have adequate ambulance services throughout this county. And that's what we're hoping with your cooperation and our money that we can do this in this county. So now we'll get into the money, and that's Ron's going to talk a little bit about the data that we've driven out of just out of tax dollars. And these are all statistics that you'll find. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand up and watch the sheets are a little backwards from this, but to dig into the numbers a little bit, and I think what we found in this process is we found some interesting things. We as a county tax based on parcels. So we looked at the various municipalities, both in population and parcels, but we based everything on parcels because that's how we tax things. This goes through your municipalities and tells you what taxable parcels you have. And in the right side of that, it tells you what 1 mill is and what 2 mills are in this. So at the bottom of that 2 mill column is the county EMS contribution could be as much as $2,286,884 or cost per rateable parcel $38.80. When we look at what there is now, and we sent a letter to each municipality saying, what are your plans for 2022? The numbers here under the proposed are what you told us, not what we tried to figure out, but what you told us that your plan was for 2022. And it's a really very varied amount that per parcel people are paying. And I'm not pointing at different things, but it goes from a low of $7.37 per parcel to a high of $73.20 per parcel, being Milford, kind of a unique place in the county. And then you get to what is an average that people are paying throughout the county right now, and it's about 21, it's 21.47. So I think one of the things that has to happen over time is that has to be averaged out a little more, so that if you're in a place like Milford Borough, you're paying $73 per parcel. or you're in a place that has a lot, is paying a lot less. I think that that has to be fixed a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, and I don't think it'll ever get to the point unless legislation tells us that it has to be all be the same. But these are interesting numbers. You see some of the big spenders in the back of the room like Dingman's and right here with Shook here. Did they just start this when you got elected? No.
You think I was driving force?
But again, you're looking at per parcels, $46 and $49, but the big number amounts are 437,000 plus and 385,000 plus. That is a lot. It also means when we get down to that county match, and we did the math a little bit of where you're getting. Dingman's ends up near $700,000 of possible money that they'll have to spend on EMS. We're hopeful that they put another ambulance service on board, or they start to get into the ALS type of services and things like that. You see another place that kind of sticks out to me is Lehman. It takes it up to that 700,000 plus number. That's a lot of money. Lackawaxen currently has a referendum that was passed. It's 2.5. The only two counties that are spending more than the two right now are Lackawaxen and Binghamton. So again, it's just an array of different things that have evolved through the years. But I think you have to look at these numbers, and I think you have to start to think about: am I paying too little? Am I paying too much? How can we elevate this plan so that it kind of spreads things out throughout the county? And it'll never happen perfectly. We know that. Each of you have your own little ways that you do things. I live in Palmyra Township, and you could arguably say the biggest fundraising event in the county is the world famous Captain Outing. That is a wonderful way for them to fund some of their services. And if you live there, you don't even drive that way during it, because it is a world famous outing that generates a lot of money for these services. I will also say that I get something in the mail almost every month, because it's a well-organized machine that's out there raising money. And they have every type of breakfast and dinner and type of thing that you can do. And I think it's similar in Blooming Grove through at Hemlock and other places where you've been able to raise money. Other don't do as much of that anymore and are more reliant on other ways to get money. But I applaud everyone for getting to this point. We just feel a responsibility to help us along. I say this all the time when I speak, and I hope to change it before I leave this position. I think that we are the only county in Pennsylvania of the 67 that does not have a hospital and does not have an urgent care center. That to me is awful. We are going to change that. Right? We are. We are well into talks now to bring something on board that we think will be really good for the entire county. But why do I say that? The burden that it puts on EMS because we do not have a hospital is like no other. Like no other. I own businesses, Ski Big Bear. When we have someone fall and injure their leg, it never happens. Never happens. But if they do, it's a journey. And it's a journey by Lackawaxen to come pick them up, take them, and they're gone an hour and a half, they're out of service. We feed them, we provide their children with skiing, we do everything we can to park the rig down there because we're frequent flyers, just so that journey is a little more palatable. And that you could go through every type of area in the county, and I think that really highlights where we are. We do not have a hospital, so we're dragging people. We're giving them a comfortable ride to other places. But that's a little bit of dig into the money end of it. And I think that should generate some questions. Again, we did not make up the numbers. They're from you, or they're from statistics, or however, but I think now we're ready to.
Yeah, let me just add one thing to that. So when you look at this is the economy of scales, because when you take places like Milford Township, Milford Borough, which are very small municipalities, Porter Township, there's not enough there to drive enough money. So obviously you take Milford Borough at $73 because there's only 548 parcels. Whereas when you take Dingman's, you have 9,000 parcels, whatever. That makes a big difference. So going into thinking about the legislation in the future, if this could come to that way, then we could come up with an equitable fee structure that everybody paid the same. How that looks like, I don't know yet, but that's when it would be, where it would be some type of a fee structure through some type of organization, whatever was developed, but that's how you could somewhat level this out and smooth it. But right now, we can only deal with what we can deal with. As you can see, if we went to the full max for the county, it's $38.80 per year on average per readable. So that's a big difference between what you see happening in each municipality because of the economy of scale. So I just wanted to point that out. And then I guess we can go into questions. We didn't bring the checkbook, by the way.
Well, that's where I thought I would start. Is the funds are gonna be upfront? You're gonna pay at the beginning of the quarter for the quarter?
Correct.
And how often are you gonna make the adjustments based on the data?
That's a really good
I
question.
think we're gonna listen to you and we're gonna listen to the service providers. I think that's what, and we're gonna listen to Bernie, running 911. I think that's the only thing we, as the commissioners, can go by, is as those stats go on, and listen to you as far as back to that map. I believe if Bernie wants to speak to this, I believe the municipal leaders can choose how that map looks. Am I right, Bernie?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we will. Right now, the only thing we, like I said earlier, is we only have a map to go by right now. And we want to get this started without turning it into a big, long study and trying to do that. We'd rather just try to work this out with the municipal leaders, show them what the percentages are, or you have it, of what percentages are that get covered in your township by which services, and fund them. Because some of the services, while I know some of them are weak right now because they don't have enough staff, but what we're hoping is that this funding will bolster them back up, because we have, as I said to you, 13 services. We get all 13 services operating at a good rate. That takes the stress off of the ones that have been, like the Lackawaxians and the Blooming Groves and the Dingmans that have really been out there doing it. But that's what we're hoping. We're hoping to get this back up and running. But we'll see. Over time, if it changes, it changes. We're not here to dictate.
Yeah, Rachel, that's a good question, and I probably haven't given it enough thought. It seems to me that, and I'm not the data person, but every time I'm at a meeting and I'm with 20 data persons, they're like, I think you have to look at least initially over some period of time. I'm not sure how you would make an adjustment, at least initially, before a year, because I don't know that you're going to have enough information. It's just my opinion. After that, then you have, let's say, the first quarter of the second year, then you have something to compare it to. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. It is a very good question. I think you need some period of time in the beginning to make sure the data you're getting is consistent and is not just some sort of blip that may not happen the following year.
Just curious as to the reasoning behind using the map that you have now versus where the actual calls are going. Right now, we're 48% of the time captain is outside of Palmyra Township. So we're covering for some of these other companies that aren't making the call. So is the idea that these companies, because of additional funding, are gonna be able to be on more often, or?
Another good question, Eric, and I think your township is targeted probably more than, if there's one township that's going outside of their municipality the most, it may be Palmyra, it may be. But I think that the only way that we can do it is start at a starting point and fix it. And I think it can be fixed quickly. And I know exactly what you're saying. You may be covering, let's say, 35% of green, when maybe the territory isn't that 35%. And it has to relate to the call volume at some point in the future, when we can compile the data that makes sense. But I think initially, the state has this in place, and until we change that, or you change it actually, you certainly can change your coverage area. And if you work together with so for example, if you went to your bordering township and say, listen, we would like to have this percentage of your township, And would you agree to that? That changes it immediately. And they can change it immediately. I don't think that that's a time consuming, that's not a year's thing, is it, Bernie?
No,
Did you agree?
it used to be that the licensure for EMS, they had geographic areas. Now that kind of has gone by the wayside for the Department of Health. I think all the agencies get a Pennsylvania license. Obviously, it makes sense to not have ambulances traveling from one end of the county to the other, okay? Closest available makes sense for patient care. But to change the geographic area, as long as the agency is licensed, it makes sense for you guys. It can be changed. We have to do some mapping. There is a lot of work involved in it, but it can be changed.
So I think I danced around that, but the answer is we want it to be good for each municipality, and we want it to be fair. The only way to be fair is for you to be compensated for the work that you're doing, and especially the work that you're doing outside of your municipality, if that makes sense. We just have to find a way to get there.
So I understand that data collection is difficult and time consuming, and being a number cruncher in various projects and studies, it's not easy. Is there an app for the kind of data collection and analysis and allocation that needs to be done, not just in this county, but perhaps
Well,
something?
I think it's more than an app. I think it's a program that's already in place. We just have to begin to collect the data and manage that data after we analyze it. And it's in place, right, Bernie?
The report that the county did a couple years ago, 3 years ago, okay, was very, very, very labor intensive. We got those figures from the county computer aided dispatch system. And that's exactly what it is. It's a computer aided dispatch system. It's not a billing system. It's not a call accounting system. It's not designed for this. It's a dispatch system. So a call comes into a particular geographic area. It gets assigned an incident type. Is it a broken leg? Is it a cardiac problem? Is it a lift assist? And then from there, it looks at the map and says, okay, based on information that we receive from the services in the municipalities, this particular ambulance should go there. And it goes down and says, okay, well, that ambulance isn't available. They're out of service for whatever reason. Okay. System doesn't care, doesn't know why it's out of
It
service.
doesn't put that piece of data somewhere for further analysis.
No, it just knows it's out of service. Doesn't know whether it's on another call. Well, it does know that it's on another call, but it's not something that we can drag out as a report. It just knows it's not available for dispatch because again, it's a dispatch program. So it says, all right, who is the next one? We go down to the next one. Oh, that one's not available. It'll go down to the third one until it finds one that's available. Okay, and that's what it does. In many areas, okay, we'll dispatch the primary ambulance and they don't respond. So then we have to move on to the next one and maybe even the third one. So all of a sudden, one call is generated many different dispatches. And we can track that, we can count that, but it's not accurate. Okay, 3 services, they call for a helicopter, that's a 4th service. If there's a QRS unit involved, that's a 5th service. So all of a sudden, we've got 5 entities, agencies being dispatched, and it's still only one call. What can be done is every agency, and there's some agency providers in here that know software better than I do, but my limited knowledge is every time they take a call, okay, they have to enter it in and it goes to the state. That pretty accurate? Okay. And they can kick those reports out, okay? Because part of the call is what municipality is it in? They can generate that. The municipal services, whoever they're utilizing, can generate that information much more accurately than we can. So, as you're negotiating or dealing with the services and everything, hey, we want to look at it. They don't have to give you any of the HIPAA information or anything. Patient confidentiality is all of that. Just where did the ambulance go? They go in your municipality, they go into another municipality. Again, I run around the ambulance, but I'm not the EMT, so I don't see that software, but I understand that that's there because they have to submit that to the state. So they can run reports and they can give you that information. And I think that's a good starting point. rather than digging back through history, because if we want to dig back through history, let's just look at the 2018 report, because not a lot of things have changed. Now, moving forward, as services are responding when they're dispatched, I think that the system will be able to give a little bit more accurate information, because we're not going to be going because this service didn't respond. This one didn't respond. That one didn't respond. You know, since the services started, a couple services started in January of this year, paying their staff, they're getting out on every call. Now it's only one agency per call. Now we can get a little more accurate information. But I think what's going to have to happen is look at your agency's reports, ask them for that information. It's going to benefit them. Okay. And move forward with that data and adjust it as needed. Start at one point, I think makes sense, and then move forward and then constantly evaluate the data.
Let me just, maybe just follow up by saying, we're not proposing a perfect system, and the system is gonna have to grow over time. But everybody in this room knows far better than me that we're in a crisis situation. And somebody's gonna die because there was no coverage, because people got there too late. And that's just not, it's just not right. It's not morally ethical for us to allow that situation to continue. There will be some inequities until we get the data adjusted. I don't know what to do about fixing all the world's inequities. But we have to start somewhere, and I think we can fix a lot of them over time as we get the information. So that's, we've had some discussions at past meetings about, well, there's nursing homes and facilities for seniors in the eastern part of the county, so that's really problematic. And I'm stealing Matt's line here, not mine. It's like, well, yeah, they're residents of the county too, and they deserve to have the care and the treatment. And if the numbers are such that we need to adjust that over time because more calls are going there, then that can happen. But there has to be a starting point.
And we feel that funding, in Palmyra, in the case of the county dollars, Palmyra will get 95, on my formula here, I did some math, we'll get $95,000 directly from county dollars to put into that. To me, that helps solve some of the issues of having to run outside what we'll call your township lines. But that's why I said early on, we have to look at this as a county service. This is for every resident of this county, and that's why we think that the money that we're putting in there will help at least smooth some of that out, because some of the the larger municipalities taking care of some of the smaller ones, just because of that. So we're feeling that, this is where we need to start. If Bernie and all the services over time can come up with a different formula that seems to be more equitable, we're not here to tell you this is the plan forever and ever. We're here to start someplace, and we're willing to put this money up front. Right now, it's $1.2 million. That's a match of what you're putting into it right now. If you come to us by October 1st and tell us, we're going to go to the 2 mills, we're committed to move that up to whatever that number is in our budget, but we need to know, obviously, so that we can plan our budget. But some municipalities may look at this and say, we're going to go to the 2 mills. We're going to do it. And we're going to figure this out, and we're going to work with our service providers and fund it, whether it's with the map or, again, I know Bernie says it can be changed. Whatever you think is best for how you get the money, because the money is going to the municipal leaders, not to the service providers. We're not handing it out to them.
I can tell you, when the map was up there are pockets where the primary service is out of service a lot of the time. Okay. If they were all in service, and I'll go back to that in a second, but if they were all in service, I think just based on historical data from looking at call volume, looking at the municipalities, looking at their services and everything, the responses are pretty good. Okay. Again, if all the services are available, there's probably going to be spots where there just isn't enough money for certain areas to provide 24/7 coverage. But we've got the opportunity here to work with your neighbors and say, you know what? We can't do this alone, but maybe this particular service is in service for 12 hours a day, and the neighbor is in service for 12 hours a day. And look at that and then try to build from there. What we don't want to see is pockets that don't have any service and kind of puts Palmyra, you know, Eric brought it up, and it is a big concern that they're constantly running there because their services are out of service a lot of the time. If those services were in service, Afton would not be running down there nearly as much. You know, when Dingman stepped up the beginning of this year, that was a huge help. That was a big area in the center of the county that relieved a lot of things. Thank you, guys.
Question.
Sure.
What are the parameters for the use of the funds the county is going to provide?
We want it to be used for, you know, right here. Provide services, so bring in more if you want to expand your BLS service. I don't know if you have 24-hour, you wanted to bring in an ALS service in case of, I know that was mentioned at one of the meetings at Boone Grove from Dingman's, you know, we just want to see service expanded. It can be used, as we said, if you have a service and you have trouble finding staff and you need to use it to raise the hourly wage, we're okay.
Well, that's a important part, but what about equipment and things like that? Use for equipment?
Well, I think, I think what we're saying is if we can help with the parts that Matt just said, you can take existing money and use for that and split it that way.
Now count as a match.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we don't care what you do with your money.
But that'll be considered a contribution towards the match.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Ernie?
One of the things that we identified in the plan of 2018 was at one point, if there was funding and everything, to leave the existing services in place. We come up with some figures of what it was going to cost to provide the labor to support those ambulances and leave the insurance money back to those agencies to fund the ambulances, put the gas in it, things such as that. Okay, so we just looked at the labor cost. So Eric, you know, they should probably be looking at their insurance. That's why the insurance dollars are important. One of the commissioners said in one of our meetings, you know, is there money being left on the table? Okay, because they're not doing the paperwork properly, they're not going after it properly. And that's how the paid services in bigger areas survive. Okay, they have a lot of call volume, but they need to make sure they're getting those dollars. So, you know, my estimation is probably a lot of those dollars should be used towards that type of stuff.
Who's up? Mark.
With the mapping solution that you're beginning with, there's nothing stopping the township to say, yeah, they cover 50% of the township, but they're only doing 20% of the calls. So we're going to take that county portion, give it the portion of the company that's covering it 80%, or down in that case, in Palmyra's case, where they're covering another township the majority of the time, that the township they're covering provide that money to Afton.
Lost me. I'm sorry.
Can, if I, let's say I'm covering Milford Borough 60% of the time. Is there anything that stopped Milford Borough from giving me 60% of the county money? Because I'm covering it at the time. So that's doable?
Yeah, we're just using the map as an example right here. What we're hoping is that with that map, that if that is occurring right now, that this money would bolster, I'll just use that, I know I'm not picking anyone, but that would bolster Milford Borough then to take care of what is required for them on this map.
Oh, I
Right?
understand that.
But if the municipality wanted to change the map and fund a different way, yeah.
But what if they didn't want to change the map? I'm saying like Milford's in service 12 hours a day. So, but the other 12 hours I'm covered.
Well, what we're hoping is that they will be in service with this money 24 hours.
That doesn't happen. Is that,
That'll be up to the municipality to distribute those funds.
oh, that's
Right,
what
that'll
I'm
be up to the municipality to
Okay.
distribute the funds, yes.
Okay, I just-
So one of the things we're going to end on here is we're going to ask you not only for October 1st to tell us what you're putting in, but we're also gonna ask you what the plan is, so we'll just take the Milford, right? You look at this coverage map, and I didn't realize it until I looked at it. Milford has an enormous region, right? Parts of Shahola, parts of Dingman's, parts of Westfall, Milford Township, Milford Borough. What is it that Milford plans on doing if they were able to get all of those funds? What would Dingman Township do if they're able to get all of those funds? We would like to know what that plan is. Is the plan in Dingman Township to put on an ALS? Is the plan in Milford Borough and the Milford Ambulance Company to put on a 24-hour service? And this way, or 2 ambulances? I don't know, but this is why we're asking you also to talk to each other, to figure this out. We're not here to direct the money. We're here to offer the money and come up with a suitable solution to this that satisfies your needs and back to all the residents of this county. And that's what we need to remember. This is county money, which is meant to benefit every resident of the county, so we can kind of smooth out the inequities if there are any. But hopefully we can build back up the ambulance services that have grown weaker in the last number of years. And maybe this fund does that.
Yeah, and you guys are gonna have to do that. I mean, I know Ed raised a question at one of our meetings about, this is, probably shouldn't use this phrase, but I'll use it. It's like, hey, we may have too much money, given what we're already putting in, right? And there are other.
Did you really say that?
Was something like that, Ed. If I,
So what are we gonna spend it on?
right.
Exactly.
And then there's, Porter Township, just because of their population, obviously can't raise that money. So there are inequities just by where people live, where the population centers are. And our job is to try to provide additional funding. That's what we're here for. But you're all gonna have to talk to one another in terms of the best way to spend that. We're not driving that. You're the municipal leaders, we're not.
So just
Good.
like in our situation, it shows, Milford covering part of Dingman Township, but we also contribute to their paid service. So when you look at our budget is we're paying for 24/7 for Dingman, and we're paying a share of Milford being paid for 12 hours. So that's why our budget is kind of high. But at the same time, I just looked at the quick numbers Mark gave them to me. Of our 575 calls till now, so far this year, 245 of them were outside of Dingman Township. Now, some of those are in Milford and Milford Borough. We understand that they're paying for part of the service. A lot of them are from, places that we're not sure where we're going. But
we're gonna give you, in the case of Dingman's, we're gonna give you that match to hopefully smooth that out.
And that helps. And look, I want to say thank you very much for giving us the money. We really appreciate it. Having that extra money come in, take some of the burden off maybe some of our taxpayers, which is a big help. But we still, I think down the road, are gonna have the issue with somebody spending $5,000 a year, and you match it, now they have $10,000, let's say. What says that they're gonna give that money to the services that are actually covering a lot of calls in their municipality? And that has to be done, obviously, between the municipal leaders have to be talking about that. But our concern is that those numbers are still really high for certain services going outside their municipality a lot. The money certainly helps, but I don't want to have to put a second ambulance on in Dingman Township because just to go out and cover other municipalities. I would, I'd love to be able to use that money to say, hey, I'm going to put an ALS service on. But if that ALS service is never in my township because it's gone all the time, at that point in time, I'm going to look at, well, why am I doing that if I'm just funding for everybody else? Or if those other municipalities aren't coming back. So I think there's more work to do in the room between the municipalities to talk about too, is saying, hey guys, if you're getting this money in, you need to recognize that other services are coming into your municipality and you're willing to share some of that money with them to try to cover. And that's the part I think over the next year that we all need to be talking about is, and I'm sure you'll be looking at the numbers too. Trust me, I love having that money coming in because that takes some of the burden off. And that helps us maybe even give more over to make sure that we have 20% coverage in all parts of my municipality all the time. Particularly if Dingman's on 24/7, but they're out on a call someplace and somebody else has to come in or Milford has to come in. So thank you for the money. it's gonna do a lot of good, and I'm really thankful that you guys have jumped up and said and recognized that, but I think the municipal leaders are in the room, need to be talking over the next year about, hey, you know, guys, we also need to share with each other sometimes if we're doing a lot of coverage in the municipality.
Correct, but the sharing is going to be with county dollars. Right?
Well,
So right now you're spending whatever the number is, I forget, 437,000, right? So we're gonna give you another 427, or the 2 mils. You guys are at 2.5 mils, 348,000. That should help expand the services for the entire county. Because we're gonna have to realize there's gonna have to be mutual aid. Milford Borough, in my calculations, with that map, gets $315,000. Now, I would hope Milford Borough, that ambulance would say, okay, listen, we're putting on 24-hour service, right? Which takes pressure off of Dingman's at this, right? So now the pressure's off of you to cover your region that's on that map. They have it, but there may be a time they're out, and you're gonna have to cover them, but we know all about that. So that's why I think we just need to look at these numbers, do the math. Like I say, I did them. And I think we just need to look at it. I think we just have to start off someplace, and this is the place to
Sorry,
start.
thank you for the money, it takes a lot of pressure off. A
Yeah.
lot.
Well, it puts up, but it also takes a lot of pressure off of county residents. You know, we've said this in many meetings. This has got to get off the front page of the paper. We can't have people thinking they're coming here to visit that we have some type of weaknesses in our EMS services. We have to build it up, and we have to make sure it's strong so that everybody feels safe, regardless of where they are in this county. Because I've said many times, unless we all plan on only having a medical emergency in our bedroom, then that's not right. We could have a car accident someplace. We got to make sure that there's some type of service that's available to all of us at any given time, wherever we are. People are traveling through Route 84 continually. You know, we all travel all over too. We expect that there's going to be some type of adequate ambulance service. One service could be out, another one needs to cover. And that's what we're trying to build here, so that you have the money to be able to do that, so that you're covering your residents, but we're also covering the rest of the county. Ernie, did you have something?
Yeah. And you're right. This is, as I said in the beginning, Commissioner said that no other county is doing anything like this, okay? So we've got the opportunity to really be forerunners, leaders within the state. But it is going to take cooperation with all of the municipalities to step up and do the right thing. It has some numbers there, you saw the inequities and stuff and the dollars and cents, but everybody needs to do the right thing. And if everybody works together at the municipal level and make adjustments for those type of inequities, the system will work. But it really is going to require everybody to step up to the plate and do the right thing.
What if townships don't? What if townships don't do it? Could there be some mechanism in place where if a township does not step forward and pass any type of tax or do anything to, because legally they don't have to. I mean, it's written in that they should, but there's no hammer, you know, there's no consequence if they don't. So, so could something be written in like a mechanism where if after 12 months, or if they don't sign up by October 2021, or 12 months goes by and they're still not doing anything to try to create any funding, and they're just, again, you know, being serviced by other townships around them, you know, with no issues. Could there be some type of mechanism in what you're doing to take their allocation that they would have gotten, or part of it, up to, you know, $500,000 or up to $1 million, and then distribute it to the services that are responding to that township? If municipal leaders won't step up, can you?
I guess we have to define what step up is, because you can see the list. Every municipality sent us a letter. Every municipality has committed the dollars into that. We're hoping that this meeting will make them understand that if they're doing something and they want to have a more efficient service, then they need to step up and put money. I don't know if there's any hammer we can put on, but I don't. So it depends on what you want to justify as stepping up. I mean, Milford Borough, Milford Township, they're doing 2 mills. They can only do, you know.
No, I'm talking about the towns that have no tax.
But they don't
If
need to have a
they don't
tax.
pass
They don't need to have a tax. No one, you don't have an EMA. You don't need to have a 2 mil referendum like Milford Borough does. We're not saying that. Every township on this list is putting something into it. The larger townships obviously have larger pools of money to draw from, smaller ones are, but everybody, I don't know if you saw the list, everybody's putting money in.
Okay, so
So
this is
everybody's
committee
matching
funding?
something. It's not fully funded. Fully funded would be every municipality in this room doing 2 mills or more. So if that's what we want to hear, that's what we're willing to do. If every township in here says we want to put in 2 mills, this fund grows to $4.5 million because we put in the other half. But that's up to you as municipal leaders. All of you though are doing something right now.
Tammy, yeah, it's an excellent point. And we hear you loud and clear. The reason that we have a variable number that we're going to be giving out is to encourage people. I mean, I'm a business person. If someone said to me, they're gonna match something and I'm gonna put something in, I'm in.
Right.
I don't wanna do a half. I wanna put 2 and I wanna get the matching funds. That just makes sense.
It does, but if
But
there's no consequence for them not doing, and I'm not saying they should be punished. I'm not asking for anybody to be punished,
We hear you.
but if there's no allocation that the county is giving that township, because they're not putting forward the spending themselves, can their share be allocated to the townships that are responding to them? That's all I'm asking, is could their funding be split to the towns that are providing services?
It's a good point.
I think it's a little premature. We don't know what everybody's going to do. You know, this is
Right.
the first time they've had this opportunity. So I think that we just need to let the plan work and see what happens. And
Right, that's why I was asking if we could, after like 12 months, upon review, if there are townships that aren't participating, could their funding be allocated?
100%.
But just so you know, looking at this, but every township is at least putting $500,000. On this list, every township is putting at least $500,000. Some are putting in more than that, but for the most part, everybody's putting at least $500,000. We're hoping that's why we gave you these numbers to show what 1 mill drives in your township, what 2 mills drives, so you can see where you can go. And this is talking among the service providers. So if the township can say to their service provider, what can we do? How much money do you need to bolster the service? And they say, well, we could use X from you. They can go by this sheet and say, okay, we're doing $500,000 now. Maybe we'll move it up to $1 million. But they're gonna have to do the mill out of their general fund unless they do a referendum to put it in place, because anything over that. So everybody is giving at least $500,000.
Matt, real quick question. I'm assuming at the end of the year, all the municipalities, the money that you've given us are gonna have to give you a report saying, here's where it went.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna look at that and say, well, guys, you didn't spend your money on ambulance, you spent it on roads, you're not supposed to do that. I mean, so we're assuming that at the end of the year, everybody's gonna have to show, hey, the money that they asked for, the money they got, whether they gave it to another municipality to help out with theirs, or whether they spent it on their own, we're gonna have to account for it.
And we're hoping that, next year, right, after we've gone through a year of this, we'll have this meeting again and we can see what worked and what didn't work. Where should the money have been better spent? We're open to that, and just as you're saying, Mark, whether more money should go into this service or Palmyra, we can all work together with that, but we all have to realize that, this is all of our money and we need to figure out what the best solution is for spending it. But we need to start.
And I guess I asked the question everybody's asking, where's the money coming from?
So in the beginning,
Initially, I understand it's gonna come from the federal monies.
we're working with some of the federal money. We're working within our budget. We're working within our debt. Not that we're borrowing it, but we're managing our entire budget by doing this. But right now, over the next couple of years, because of the $10.8 million that we were allocated, we're going to slowly use that money and slowly use, and I'm not gonna, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. Is there gonna possibly be some tax increases? There is, but I think back to just these referendums that some of the townships have passed. You found out that 95% of the residents supported it. As long as we explain to our residents how we're spending the money and that it's going to EMS services, I don't think there's gonna be many people that are gonna push back. Milford Borough, Milford Township, 95%. That's a large number of people that supported that. So we're gonna work through our budget. We're gonna use that money to slowly build it so that we don't have to put in one big tax if we have to do a tax, but we're gonna work our budget. Maybe we don't need to. We're working on that every week, trying to figure this out. And we're gonna do it. That's why we're telling you, this is not a one and done deal. This is a commitment to this Board of Commissioners. As somebody's brought up before, other Board of Commissioners could come in and change it, but I don't think that a board of commissioners would come in here and sit in front of all of you and say, hey, you know that money you've been getting for 6 years, we're not giving it to you no more. I think it'd be a bit of an uprising here. And the prime example of that in the county is the library. So 20 years ago, the county committed $200,000 to the library. And that's what's been allocated. That's just out of general fund. There's no direct millage. There is no way that any board of commissioners would say, we're not going to give that money to the library anymore, because you basically closed the library. The same thing would occur here. If we committed this money and after 5 years, you were spending it and this is working as a great plan, and all of a sudden we said, we're not going to fund it no more. What are we going to do? How will we fix that? The only way it can be different is if legislation comes into place and we come up with a different mechanism of funding. Then obviously, maybe your tax goes away, maybe our tax goes away, and it becomes some type of general fee. That's to be seen. But right now, this is what we have to work with.
Lance.
Yes, I had a little question. Thank you for your efforts in presenting this. It just seems, my simplistic view, that we're going indirectly instead of directly to the problem. The goal is to have an ambulance at the side of a patient when there's a need, a response. And if money was given to those agencies that responded, that would encourage them to increase their staff and respond more. And that would directly encourage what's doing. That would address the problem of Mark going out of his township in Palmyra. I just don't see why it's not going directly to responders. That's the criteria that really counts. A response, an ambulance at a patient.
We need to build back up the ambulance services that we have countywide, because we can't be telling Palmyra, because if there's a weak service, and I'm not saying that, I'm just going to pick examples. If there's a weak service in Matamoros, and we have to tell Palmyra to respond to Matamoros because they're the ones that's really strong right now. Our vision with this is that if we can get some of this money into the Matamoros Westfall area, we bolster that ambulance service up. Now they're taking care of their region, and Dingman's isn't running down there. Dingman's is taking care of their region. That's back to the map. I don't see where doing that is the right thing to do. We know that when all of these services with volunteers were in place and everything was running perfectly, everything was fine, right? But now we've come across the problem that we have limited volunteers. Some services have become weaker, and not because of anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. As I said earlier, this is a Commonwealth issue. This is not a Pike County issue. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I think what we need to do is we need to try and build back up the promised land of ambulance services, the Westfall ambulance services, the ones that have been struggling to move along, and even the ones in Milford and that. And they have so far with the money Milford has given to them, they have 12-hour service. Well, maybe there's more money, gives them 24-hour. Maybe they put on another ambulance. I don't know, but this is the plans that we need to hear from the municipal leaders talking to their services.
Thank you for the response.
Right there. Yeah.
Actually, it's not a question, and it's a thank you. Our ambulance squad is struggling to get EMTs, so Tim's program with the EMTs and the funding for the EMT classes is great. It was great to hear Wallenpaupack to get the kids. You really need to get their interest, because those are the ones that will be out in your community and helping. And so you're helping in threefold. Those projects of getting staffing and the funding that we're getting. We were looking at our plan and within the next 2 to 3 years of needing to do another referendum. So that was going back out to our township in Waxahachie and asking, more mills because we had to increase wages and benefits to get staff. So that helps our township residents that they are not going to have to go out and add more taxes onto that. Because we do go out into a lot of other communities too. Actually, in 2020, we had 123 mutual aid calls out of 585 calls that we were out in other townships. So our residents say, well, we're paying taxes. Why are you going out into, the other townships and stuff? That's mutual aid, and that's what we have to do. But our plan for the future is to hire enough staff to open our Greeley station. If you look at the map, we're way up there in Waxahachie, and we're one of the second largest township, I think, in Pennsylvania, definitely in our county. And so we want to open a second station with a full crew in the Greeley station, which would put us closer to Shoala. We'd be able to help Milford and be closer down at that end of the township, since we're up at the other end. But it's really interesting. We had a call the other night in Sagamore Estates, in Shoala, and we took our patient down to Port Jervis. We're leaving the hospital, we got a tone in our township, not more than a mile from our station, and we weren't there. Tappan had to come out because we were out on another call. They were still there when we came by, so we stopped to help. You know, thanks guys, Tappan, for coming out, and we helped with their patient too. So just some of the things that happens whenever you're out there. You don't know when the accidents happen, and you're out in a call. What are you gonna do? You know, another station always has the committee cover that.
So just your plan and the hoping that Greeley station is exactly what we are hoping that this money does. That's what we want to see.
We would
That
like to
benefit-
do that.
Yeah,
That has
and that's-
been one of our
that's
goals. in our
part of the plan that we want to hear.
supervisor's goals. Yeah, that's been one of our goals, is because our township's so big, for us to get from one even to our own coverage area is more time than we want to take to be able to get to a call. So going forward, if we can get to staffing, that's what we plan to do, is open up the Greeley station, at least part-time, and try to build that up. So thank you.
Jane, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You mentioned possibly funding ALS service, and in going back to 2017 survey and some of the things we've looked at, and Delaware's part-time ALS effort and prior ALS efforts, I just want to say that trying to consider ALS service as your primary service, or even potentially your secondary, if you were to put on another rig or something. One of the hardest things about it is, at least on the eastern side of the county, there isn't a full-time ALS coverage that can be called on by 911. On the western side, there is more standard ALS coverage that can be called in to aid BLS responding. And for a couple of years now, I've watched this and have heard some of us saying we want to make our BLS services healthy. So if any municipality is looking at ALS, I would invite them to very much have conversations with neighboring municipalities because of the issue that we have seen, which is ALS is going to be called out more and not be there for your residents if it is the primary, and then how you might structure it in partnership with neighbors if you don't have it as the primary, but it's something you have. It's just a commentary about ALS trying to be healthfully brought into our county, for at least part of the county that hasn't had much consistent ALS service.
Thank you.
That was what I was gonna ask, is about us potentially using some of this money. We've got very healthy ALS in Blooming Grove, but just in the Hemlock Farms area, because that's paid for by member dues. But the rest of our township is lacking the ALS coverage. So that's somewhere where I'd really like to see our township be able to expand.
If that's what if that's what you want to propose to us that your match is for, yeah.
But if there would be some way that the county could explore or look into commercial services that
No,
other townships could
sorry.
coordinate together.
I'm just going to say, that's up to you. We're not getting into the EMS service provider. That's for you to discuss with your providers, not, I'm sure Bernie will assist you with some stuff, but this is us helping to fund you with your current, what you have in services. And if you want to expand your services, you should work on how you can, take that match. And if you want to put more in for the township money, then you're going to get more from the county money to do that. But we're not, that's up to each one to decide how they want to spend the money and how they want to expand services for all the county residents. I'm going to keep saying that, This is all the county residents, because this is county money. Rachel?
I have two questions. One is, as we begin to work with our EMS providers to build a plan for you, which we have like 9 days to do. What specific metrics, are there any specific metrics that you're going to be looking for in the accountability that they need to be prepared to report back? That's part one. And part two is, can the county help us as a large group identify where call time, response time is very poor, that adding service, in those specific areas working together might be able to save people's lives.
Ernie, can you address that? Your first question, we're a bit flying by the seat of our pants here, okay? We're gonna leave it up to you to tell us what it is that you think the money should be spent for, just as Tammy is saying. And then we, as we said, next year, we revisit this and we see where can we do better? What do we need to do that's more proficient and more efficient? But Bernie, as far as the holes, I think that's more of a 911, which was in our study actually, and it may still be true with the call times.
Yeah, in a lot of areas that is true, okay? You're gonna get your most accurate information from your responders. They track all of that information in much more detail. Do we have it? Do we have response times? Yes, but they also have that. Okay, but just looking at it, knowing that Milford isn't in service 24/7 right now, that should be the primary goal. Is how can we support that? And if they can't support it, and Westfall has money, but not enough for 24/7, then maybe the two of you should be getting together and say, we both don't want to provide services from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and have no services anywhere around from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. It doesn't make sense. Okay.
I follow what you're saying, but what I'm thinking about, Bernie, is, when you go up Route 6, half the street is Milford Township and half the street is Damon Township, for a great distance. And you get close into Shahula where service coverage is an issue. But is that an area where if Shahula and Dingman and Milford Township work together, would that potentially fill in some of those gaps for response time in an area that all of the people in that area would potentially have a much faster trip to the hospital? Then, obviously, first priority is to make sure that our own team is doing 24/7 coverage to the extent that we possibly can. But if we're looking for 24/7 coverage in our municipality, and geographically speaking, it makes more sense to divvy that up, then that's a conversation that you might be able to help us identify.
As I said, kind of said earlier, if all the services were in place, and this is just historical, I didn't create these boundary lines. Okay, they were created by the volunteers for the most part a long time ago. Some of them have changed over the years. Some of them have not changed over the years. And a lot of the ones that didn't change over the years were based on because that was the closest rate, no matter what. It may not be a fantastic response time, and I'll use the end of Springbrook Road. Okay.
I hear that from my department a lot.
Yeah, because that call made the paper and everything a long time ago. Okay, Shahola had an ambulance in service that time. Everybody was volunteer. We wound up piecing an ambulance together. One brought an ambulance and a driver, and the other one brought an EMT. But no matter how you cut it, it was a long time to get to the end of Springbrook Road. So unless there was an ambulance, parked up by Trails End, okay, that wasn't gonna solve that. So, if that's something that needs to be developed, another station someplace, because you think you want to take care of that area, so, it's your money. As Lackawax just said, they plan on trying to open up the Greeley station, okay, because they identified that area. Okay, if you identify those areas and you've got the money to try to do that, that's great. But historically, the boundaries haven't been too terribly lopsided when everybody's in service.
That's what I think is the thing. We need to work on a way to get everybody in service.
Rachel, again, I'm thinking off the top of my head here, when you use the word metrics, I suppose when we take a look at this, and we meaning us, but really with Bernie's help, and we see your plans, is there some sort of just glaring hole in terms of coverage that still exists I think then, you know, we could address that with the municipalities, say, gee, you've done a really good job, except for here. So I think if there's some big gaps that kind of jump out at you, it's fine, but some of this is gonna have to be over time.
If anybody don't have the 2018 plan, your question was, a lot of that was answered in the 2018 plan. We can make that available to you as well. I can email it out, just let you know.
Yeah, I think that would be important to do that, because I think a lot of it still holds true.
The multi-agency, like you talked about, that was, that's why that.
And there was average response times and things like that.
So one of the services you identify as county proposal is potentially provide administrative support to assist with processing insurance claims. So what does that mean and how is that different than paying service provider?
I don't think it is different, but I do know of certain municipalities that have gotten behind in the bit, because the EMTs need help in getting that out, because they create it. All we're saying that if along the way we find something that we can help out administratively, we're happy to do that. If there's not a need to do that, we're happier. But we do know of certain municipalities that have what I would say left money on the table because of lack of administrative push through.
What does it mean to leave money on the table?
It means that you.
Municipalities are not paying.
No. It
We're
means
not pursuing it correctly, maybe, because it is a job to do. And all we're saying is that we would feel like if that was something you all wanted us to do here, you know, we've spoken to Bernie about this, where we would have a third party that would still doing the question, but somebody that just gathered the information, make sure it's processed. And then we would just be the administrator for it. The money would go back to your agencies. We're not keeping it. We're just, because we have heard that there were some holes in that. We just put it out there to say, if this is something you'd like us to try and do, again, to take some of the pressure off the services, so that they can do, instead of doing all this administrative work, we'll do it for you. Again, you will know who responded, and they'll get the money. They'll get the insurance money. We're not keeping any of it. We're not here we're just trying to make this as an efficient process as we can. So, you know, that was just a little side note there. That might be something that develops over time. If there was some other type of, I'll use the word authority. I know everybody gets afraid of that, but if that was to be created, then that may be a function of that organization, which would be led by elected officials to run that. And it would just be what I'll call a clearinghouse for it, to just help. This is all we're here to do. We're just here to help. We're not here to, believe me, I don't want to take none of this over.
So is that similar to how the county helps municipalities collect taxes?
Well, we don't help collect, no, you have tax collectors. We don't help the county collect taxes.
There's no county tax office that does.
Well, the tax claim office, but that's, the bills are generated, but each municipality has an elected tax collector. They collect their own taxes and submit the taxes to the county, to the townships, and to the school district. But that has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, and that's something that is required by state law for the link taxes to have a tax claim bureau. This is just something that we're suggesting. People think it's needed, we can assist with that.
So in summation, the common theme that we've heard from Eric and Rachel and Lance and Tom and everybody is that how do we make this more fair? How do we collectively come up with something within the county that is equitable to all? We don't have that plan right now, and we could certainly say there's a number of ways to get there, but we feel very, very strongly that we need to start. And where it evolves, it may go to something totally different in the future to make it will not work if it's not fair. If one person is doing more than their share, a lot more than their share, and it is happening right now, that has to be fixed. But we can't give you today that fix. We would like to work with you, and we'd like for you to work with each other to make it as fair as you possibly can. And that's what we're bringing to the table. A start of what we hope will be a solution at some point in time that we can all feel good about. Will we all feel good about this today? No. I don't know if anybody that feels good about it today, but maybe we can feel better and just take a step in the right direction. So thank you. Your input is what is received. We certainly will manipulate this in every way that we possibly can in order to make it as fair as possible. Manipulation is a good word.
No, bad word.
Really bad word. But if I could just say, so the thing to do is look at, I have a number here, number 7, which shows what the proposed county EMS matches depending upon the information you gave us. So what is it you, as municipal leaders, would want to do with those funds starting in 2022? That's all we're asking. We can do that.
And I do want to recognize the people from Wayne County here, that neighbor, and I can tell you that they're speaking about the same things, and we hope that they jump into this in a similar fashion.
Yeah, we're glad you're here because you are a provider of services in Pike County. And as much as you know, maybe the provider into Matamoros is Port Jervis, New York, because of where they're located. So that's why I said earlier, there are 13 providers that provide service. Some small, I mean, Lumberman, a little bit of Westfall over there on the Pond Eddy Bridge, because for Westfall to get all the way down there would take forever across the Hawk's Nest. So there's all these little spots that we just identified here that we need to work on, because there's residents there also that live in this county that we need to be sure are provided EMS services. So I don't know if we have, I guess we would request a letter with some outlines of what your plans on doing, you know, as long as these numbers that you're saying are going to be for 2022, tell us that it is so that we can do our budget. If you're going to increase them, tell us that too, with a plan of what you plan on doing with the money.
And if you want to opt out and do your own thing, it's your responsibility to do that. So
We'll take your money.
I can't see why any municipality would be against, trying to get to the 2 mil point, to get 2 mils back. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Even if you went to $500,000, you're still getting $500,000 back, but why not?
Well, like I say, everybody's at least $500,000. That's what we're incentivizing people by saying, go to the 2 mil and max us out. Make us figure out where we're gonna find this money in our budget. We're going to, but make us do that.
Even if you're gonna give it to your neighboring municipality, max yourself out.
That's correct.
Get the money.
We need the service.
So that you're still getting the service and you're helping the other municipality. That's the discussion that has to be done.
And that's why we're telling Matamoros, who uses port, if that's what they need to do to provide service to their residents, then that's what they need to do. We're not.
You have examples of it happening now with Milford Township giving it to Milford, us giving stuff to Milford, Shamola giving stuff to other municipalities, fire, ambulance services. So, it can work on a bigger scale too.
Yep. Anything else?
did you want? Do we need to? I don't want.
Do you feel like we need to have another follow-up meeting?
After the first check.
Well, that's next year. I'm talking about.
Concentrate on BLS, get that squared away.
Excuse me?
Said concentrate on BLS.
Yeah, well, that's up to you.
Well, I'm just saying, it just seems like there's always a lot of talk about ALS, and the problem is BLS.
Correct.
Gotta get that going.
And that is perfectly fine with us. Whatever you think is the best to provide the service.
If there's another gathering, it might be after Labor Day, which gives us time to talk with our EMS people and try and clarify what we, and then if we have questions, it could be after Labor Day, but before you're actually.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a consensus of the municipalities, you want to meet again, just tell us. We'll do it.
But you're right, October 1st is going to be here quick. We all have budgets to work on. Some of you already have this in your budget. So unless you're going to expand it, your budget's already set. right, with this, but we just want to hear what it is in a letter, wherever it's, whatever you're gonna use the money for. I know I'm beating that horse, but I think like Tom and Ed, all these need to talk about how this is going to move across township lines within that map, if you're gonna use the map. That's what we would like you to use the map. It's gonna make it easier. Okay? We good?
Thank you.
Hey, take a donut. We want too many.
Take a donut.
Hey, thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much.